Really interesting if it is in your opening hand, the way that Gemstone Caverns can turn the tempo of a 2-mana land right back around. As we discussed earlier, the deck, a lot of the games, is just one spell a turn, so being able to cast your Thought Knot at the same pace as your opponent, very important.
Well, Baugh's on the play. It's going to be Eldrazi Temple into Eldrazi Mimic. These Mimic starts, we've talked about how they're some of the best ones that the deck can produce.
Absolutely. It's just a 2-1 right now, but another Eldrazi land and a Thought Knot Seer means it's attacking for 4. Gerry has the better land. He has the Eye of Ugin, but just an endless one to keep pace.
Only a 2-2 on turn 1.
Yeah. Izamaru Hand of Kanda, not known for its modern playability.
But it's on the board. We'll see whether or not Jacob has a follow-up card to pump his Eldrazi Mimic. Plays Adakar Wastes and passes. So no endless one, no Thought Knot Seer.
Not just yet. Have to imagine there's something big coming up in a turn or two, though.
We'll see if Gerry can go from 2 to 4 here. He'll start by swinging the endless one. Jacob not going to accept that trade.
Right. That trade definitely favors Gerry.
Now we'll see, is it 2 to 3 or 2 to 4? Those 2 to 4 starts that's the scary part of the Eldrazi deck for sure.
Exactly. One of the reasons that a card like Gemstone Caverns is actually a justifiable inclusion in the deck.
For Gerry, something a lot less scary. It's going to be a Hallowed Fountain into an Eldrazi Sky Spawner.
Though the Sky Spawner on its own is just a 2-1 flyer, the Scion will enable Gerry with any land to jump right to Reality Smasher next turn.
Gerry throws out his deck box as a token. We'll switch that up for a real one.
It's difficult to discern exactly what a deck box in play means usually. So
it's a Triforce deck box, which seems pretty nice. And for Jacob, he didn't have the 2 to 4, but how about a turn 3 5-drop? It's Reality Smasher for Baugh. It'll turn Eldrazi Mimic into a 5/5, and an attack for 10 is looming.
And that's where the difference between Eldrazi Mimic and Endless One starts to be more pronounced. Of course, Dismember has an interesting interaction with Eldrazi Mimic and its trigger. Because Dismember kills creatures by shrinking their power and toughness down to 0, if you resolve your Eldrazi Mimic trigger after a creature died to Dismember, you're actually just throwing your Eldrazi Mimic in the graveyard.
Yes, it'll be a 0/0 because it died by a -5/-5. See, Gerry immediately sacked his Scion and discarded a land so that he could dismember that Mimic, the Smasher.
Yeah, Baugh, of course, not falling for the 2-for-1, or 2-for-2 in the case of Reality Smasher.
Yeah, it's one of those things on Magic Online, you'd see that, do you still want to use this ability? And it's like, don't click yes, don't do it. Yeah, Gerry will take 2 off, but he took 4 off the Dismember, so he is still down to 12.
Yeah, Dismember is not free to cast. Hallowed Fountain wasn't free to put into play. The Mimic did connect.
Here's Thought Knot Seer from Gerry. And what does it see? It sees a Drowner of Hope, a Dismember, and 2 lands. Now, you're telling me before that Drowner of Hope is one of the most important cards in the mirror here.
Yeah, absolutely. It has the ability just to tap your opponent's creatures down. Also, it's a 5/5. So the turn it comes into play, it's going to make the Mimic a 5/5 so it can swing for 5. It gives you the ability to swing, stop your opponent from attacking and blocking with 2 creatures.
Seems great.
Right. So you probably want to take it with a Thought Knot. Leaving the Dismember is not ideal because that one trades 2-for-1 against the Thought Knot Seer.
So he will exile the Drowner. Jacob draws. His hand we know is 2 lands, a Dismember, and then his draw for the turn. It's going to be a Dismember on Thought Knot. Jacob's going to see if he can hit a Reality Smasher here.
That would be ideal. Looked like a Displacer, which is fine. It will enable him to inevitably blink that Endless One out of existence.
Gerry, not one to get smashed by the Reality Smasher here. It would put him down to 2. It's a lot of damage.
Yeah, that would be a good turn.
It's a Smasher. It's just gonna.
They didn't mess around with the card name.
You watch these games, you just think, what are they thinking? Like, oh, let's trap 3 lands, this 5/5 haste trample. It's like, geez.
Yeah. Players like Ball Lightning, players like Tarmogoyf.
I mean, it's like just Ball Lightning if Ball Lightning didn't sacrifice.
Right.
Here's the Eldrazi Displacer. Mimic will swing in as well. Gerry goes to 9, and now Jacob will make a second Eldrazi Mimic.
So Jacob's draw didn't give him a very explosive turn, but this sets him up for a very explosive next turn. 2 Mimics in play is always scary.
Sky Spawner will put Baugh down to 7. Here's 2 Eldrazi Displacers from Gerry.
There we see the difference between Eye of Ugin and Eldrazi Temple, quite pronounced.
Eye of Ugin making 4 there. And now this is going to be interesting with multiple displacers on both sides, just to see how this plays out.
You do have the ability to blink opponent's creatures out of combat. The best ability that we're seeing is just Baugh's Displacer's ability to just kill Endless One.
Yeah, it brings it back as a 0/0.
Gerry notably won't be able to activate his Displacers without another mana source.
See what Baugh wants to do. He'll go to 7. Now, some of Baugh's mana is tied up in an Eye of Ugin, so he does not have 6 mana for Displacers just yet. Currently with 5.
If I were Baugh, I would cast a Reality Smasher here.
You know, I'm coming to a theme, or when we watch this matchup, that seems like the strategy in many situations, is to cast a Reality Smasher.
I mean, they're giving a little bit away with the naming of that card. It smashes reality. That's its job. I'm surprised it's not like Eldrazi. There's no sub-theme for the job. I guess there's nothing that actually exists as a creature type in Magic that they could put that could quite emphasize exactly what the card does. Could just make it a Lurgoyf.
I'll just pass. Go over to Gerry's side. Can he get in those last points of damage? He still has the Eldrazi Sky Spawner.
Yeah, and Baugh's at 6, so that's just 3 attacks. And every time that Baugh has to displace the Sky Spawner, a Scion will show up. Scion is also the mana that enables Gerry to activate his Displacer.
So Baugh would really not like to displace that Sky Spawner unless he has to.
Yeah, I imagine his plan for his mana this turn is just to kill the Endless One and go down to 4. This attack does force more issues than that.
Yeah, so Gerry's going to swing with his whole team, which I like about this attack because if he sits back on his heels, Jacob has 1 land from 2 Displacer activations, which I don't think Gerry can win through.
At 8 life, it's going to be hard. Also, just any big creature with these mimics puts Gerry into chump blocking mode.
Here comes the team. Jacob. His last card's Path to Exile. He will take care of that Displacer.
Yeah, so now the question is, Jacob has the options to take 5 and go to 1. Which if he does and Gerry has nothing, any creature gives him a lethal crackback because he can actually just blink the Endless One out of existence.
Yeah.
He does have to untap and blink the Endless One because the Darker Waste does not enable him to do that without taking a point of damage.
He's going to go to 1. Now, post-combat, Gerry dumps his hand on the board. It's another Displacer and another Mimic.
That follow-up is huge.
A lot of good chump blockers now. Jacob will displace away that Endless One. But Jacob is at 1. Draw, I believe, is a land.
A Displacer, or a Drowner of Hope here would have done it. That did not show up. This one looks like it's going to go to Gerry. The option is still there to blink the Sky Spawner, but Gerry's just attacking with 4 lethal creatures.
And Gerry can blink away a blocker, which is important.
Right.
Baugh will pass. Eldrazi Temple the draw for Thompson. It's worth playing. It gives him up to 5 mana, which means that if Baugh has to displace the Eldrazi Sky Spawner, Gerry would have 6 and be able to displace 2 things.
Right. Also, if he doesn't use that mana to displace, he's also building up towards activating Eye of Ugin. I don't believe that this game is going to come down to that, but there's really just no reason to hold on to the land.
Yeah, sometimes you hold on to extra cards in case you need to kill a Reality Smasher. This doesn't seem like one of those spots.
Yeah, the attack here should deal with some number of these mimics, making the Reality Smasher less threatening.
All right, so here's going to be the swing. It's going to be a pair of Eldrazi Displacers, the Sky Spawner, and the Mimic. And Gerry will displace Jacob's Eldrazi Displacer.
Yeah, so with Baugh at 1 year, only 5 mana available. He can blink one of these creatures, block the other two, but this looks a lot like a lethal attack. Yep.
And that'll be it. Game 1 to Gerry Thompson. The real slugfest of the Eldrazi Mirror.
Looks like we're going to have some varying sideboard plans in the mirror. Gerry has some spice, Baugh has some spice. They're different brands, though.
All right. So let's see just what spice Gerry's sprinkling then.
So one thing we actually saw earlier, talked about earlier, he has those 2 copies of Vesuva, which...
which I love.
I am curious and excited to see if this card is actually good. You obviously want to control Ayavugan. You don't control when your opponent draws it, so you can't necessarily keep a 7 that doesn't have an Eldrazi land and has a Vesuva. I guess if you assume your opponent is going to mulligan down, which I would imagine a player of Jacob's caliber is going to do, maybe this is just awesome.
Yeah. If you assume Jacob always has an Ayavugan or an Eldrazi Temple, then a Vesuva is great in Gerry's hand.
Right. Oblivion Sower is actually a pretty big breaker in the mirror. It builds you towards activating Ayavugan. Also, it's just a 5/8.
Yeah, it's very large, and large numbers seems to be one of the more important things. That's why Endless One actually is very important in the mirror.
Right. We talked about Reality Smasher a lot. Well, Oblivion Sower just jumps in front of Reality Smasher and lives to tell the tale.
How about something like Oblivion Ring? Something that's it's a little expensive, but it does take care of any creature.
It's a clean answer to Reality Smasher. Also notably, I don't know if Gerry is aware, but Baugh is bringing in 2 copies of Worship.
Right, so when you look at, going over to Baugh's sideboard then, he has these 2 copies of Worship, a card that people have touted as a breaker in the mirror. You know, a lot of Eldrazi decks are just completely cold to the card. Outside of that, Baugh doesn't seem to have much for this matchup, but that may be enough.
Right, Disenchant isn't going to do anything here. Stubborn Denial, not very exciting. You can Gutshot Mimics, but at least in my experience, that has not been worth bringing in the mirror. It looks like it boils down to Worship.
All right. Well, as we reach the end of February, that means SCG Game Night enters yet another month. For those of you who aren't aware of the promotion, SCG Game Night happens at stores around the country. So these exclusive pins and tokens given away as prizes every week. In February, we gave away the Magus of the Moo token. That's the one you see both of us wearing during this event. Next month, we will switch over to the Grim Llamamancer, which will be given away. You see that excellent Elemental 3/1 token. And if you get signed up now, you can get our newest one. This is for April. It's the Slobberin' Mile Driver. I really like this one, actually. See, it's a dog.
This is my new favorite. What I enjoy about this play so much is how far they had to stretch to make this happen. Like, Grim Llamamancer is like, okay, those are very similar. It's a little weird. Magus of the Moo, okay, but Slobberin' Mile Driver? I don't even know what a mile driver is.
Well, that'll be good. Well, you can learn what one is by playing in Game Night in April and winning one of these tokens. Find out more at StarCityGames.com/Game Night.
You don't want to miss that one. It's an opportunity to learn and grow as a person. And a joke.
It's a dog.
It's a 2-for-1.
I don't understand the mile driver part. I get the slobbering part.
Yeah, the slobbering is the part that I enjoy.
I get it.
Yeah, dog, slobber, right on. I'm with you.
All right, Ryan, you got to tell me about Mile Driver.
Okay, so I know that this is obviously based on Goblin Pile Driver.
Oh, okay, all right.
Right.
All right.
So getting pile driven is bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
This we know. If a goblin were to pile drive you, that would not be a good feeling. It has happened to me in Legacy, so I know from experience. Now,
all right.
What it means to mile drive, based on the fact that a dog is man's best friend, I assume it is beneficial to human beings.
To be mile driven?
He will drive you. The dog will drive you for a mile. I don't know, maybe it's a sleigh dog.
It's a husky.
Pulls you on a sled. I think that those are generally pretty disciplined dogs, so the slobber doesn't line up super great.
You wouldn't want your husky to be a slobbering mile driver.
Right, and especially in the winter, it's just going to freeze, and that's just a bad situation.
I'm gonna have to win one of these tokens and find out.
Right.
All right. Go to game number 2 here. Gerry Thompson versus Jacob Baugh. Baugh was our champion from the Columbus Open, did with 4-color Rally.
Very impressive fashion. He won with Rally when we saw a lot of players lose on camera. So what we see here, Baugh is mulliganing, presumably to find an Eldrazi land.
Yeah.
I really want Gerry to Vesuva him.
Baugh is not a player to shy away from playing what everybody believes the best deck is going into the weekend. Rally in Columbus, Blue-Eyed Eldrazi here in Louisville.
If the deck is good enough, the target does not matter. Being well practiced with the best deck will often even get you some pretty good success, even when the deck stops being as good with the hate targeting it.
And we're underway. Jacob will start on Adakar Wastes.
See, Vesuva's not very good against that one.
No, but Eldrazi Temple seems like it'll be just as good, which that's Gerry's land. You know, Jacob's land starts out on that and then a Flooded Strand. Jacob's lands are making 1 mana and Gerry's are making 2. I'm going to give advantage to Gerry here.
I'm going to say this 2-mana 4/4 is going to bode a lot better than Jacob's land go. We're going to get to see a look at this hand, though. Looks like it has at least 1 removal spell.
He's going to Path to Exile. Decides he cannot afford to get the Path to Exile taken, so he'll have to Path. Which means he draws the card first, and then Gerry gets to take a card from his hand.
Usually a sign that there's only 1 removal spell in the hand. Of course, one way or the other, you find out in a minute.
Now, Jacob, thing note here, he actually fetched his Hallowed Fountain before this draw resolves. This makes me think he might be land heavy here.
It's possible. Also, just getting cards that aren't Eldrazi Temple, that aren't Ayabugan out of your deck. That's really what he needs here. That's what this hand is missing.
And here are his cards: 2 Eldrazi Displacers, a Dismember, a Stubborn Denial, and a Cavern of Souls.
So Stubborn Denial did come in. That surprises me. The best position it's going to have against Gerry's deck, I believe, is just counters a removal spell. It would counter any interplay that Gerry has with the Worship. So if Baugh sets up a Worship, it does block for it.
Well, but Jacob doesn't even have a 4-power creature in hand yet. This is just a Force Spike.
Right.
Cavern of Souls is a play from Baugh. He does have an option for an Eldrazi Displacer. And that looks like it's going to be the play. But if Gerry selected Dismember, that makes you feel like he has more Thought Knots and Smashers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, just Jacob's hand is just some creatures. You couldn't take a Displacer before 1 got into play. You know, this way, if there's a Path or a Dismember, you can pluck the other one now and then use a removal spell on the other one.
Gerry's going to play a second Thought Knot Seer. Over in Jacob's hand, it's a Stubborn Denial, a Eldrazi Sky Spawner, and an Eldrazi Displacer.
Yeah, so Jacob is still on 1 3-mana spell a turn range. Gerry plays his 6 potential mana per turn. Things are really going Gerry's way so far.
Yeah, he selected the second Displacer. So Baugh's hand is a Sky Spawner and a Stubborn Denial. She's going to go ahead and Dismember away the Displacer. So that leaves Jacob with just an Eldrazi Sky Spawner against Thought Knot Seer. This is excellent for Thompson.
He has a Stubborn Denial.
He has a Stubborn Denial. I mean, oh boy, that's going to be tough for that to make any sort of traction. Eldrazi Sky Spawner is Jacob's turn. We pass back to Gerry.
Jacob really needs to find a land, a Worship, and hope that that Sky Spawner never dies.
Gerry with a third Thought Knot Seer.
Well,
And here's the Worship that Jacob needed. Can't cast it yet. Gerry cannot take it faster.
Really wanted to draw those in the opposite order.
Yeah. Third Eldrazi Temple for Thompson. And this one's going to be over quick. Jacob needs to draw another Worship right now.
Still needs a land for it, though.
Well, he has the Scion.
Right. Okay. So he needs to make Worship, and he needs Gerry to never be able to kill the Sky Spawner.
Yeah.
It's a tall order.
It's a tall order. Because all it takes is one display. Yeah, that's... Oh, boy. Displacer wouldn't do it. It'd have to be a kill spell.
Right.
Jacob would draw a card and pass the turn. Gerry untaps with 8 mana in play. Beat
Downs for Thompson here. We'll see if he has any follow-up, but he's very, Very favorable board position already.
9th Manosaurus and Cavern of Souls. Swings, puts Jacob to 6th, plays Eldrazi Mimic, passes.
The Mimic is late to the party, but still welcome. Be much worse for Jacob to be drawing Eldrazi Mimics here.
He'll play an Eldrazi Displacer, pass the turn.
If Gerry has any kind of powerful follow-up to this Mimic, Jacob's heavily on chump blocking duty then.
Even without any follow-up, Path to Exile will take care of the Eldrazi Displacer, and that is enough for Jacob Baugh. 2-0, it is Gerry Thompson winning the mirror match, moving to 5-0 on the day.
Yeah, Jacob, I don't believe he was officially dead on board there, but what you saw, the attacks would force him to block with both of his creatures.
Chump the team.
Right, Worship
yeah.
is no longer alive out, so he was really just drawing dead, even though he wasn't technically dead.
And showcasing the power once again of the blue-white Eldrazi deck, just
Handily dispatching the blue-white Eldrazi deck.
well, what I did